Hello, everyone. Thank you for clicking on this file and watching the beginning of what's going to be about a 9-10 month process to the internship match. We like to begin this process a bit earlier than some other programs, so we have enough time to pace ourselves and the way we prepare you and the way we manage our calendar and manage your calendar around the application process. We found that it works out a lot better starting a few weeks earlier. And there'll be another reminder, but I want to just make sure everyone is aware there is a link in this PowerPoint with the intent to apply form. The intent to apply form is of critical importance. It is the one and only way that we're going to know that you're ready to apply for internship, and that's how you're going to be kind of on our radar initially. And so perhaps today, or in the very near future, please prioritize filling out that intent to apply form. Just by way of introduction, I think by this time in the program, you know all of the training faculty. I'm Dr. Paul Kantz, Director of Training, and I've been at Adler. I think this is my ninth or 10th year doing internship prep. And then we've got Dr. Batista, who's Associate Director of Training, likewise has been in his role for about 10 years. And we have Dr. Nichols, who has been at Adler for about 9-10 years and has been Associate Director of Training for the last couple. And together, along with Dr. Zoline, who has been helping us out with the ISPP students who transferred to Adler a couple years ago, we're really going to be working with you step by step, month by month, as you really get to the finish line and apply for, interview at, and ultimately place on internship. It's rather exciting, honestly. It's a big deal to get to this point in the program, and I can only speak for every other cohort that's done this before you. It's such an amazing relief getting to the end of the road and placing at a site after all the hard work that is ahead of you. So with that in mind, I'm gonna spend a few minutes discussing kind of the last year and kind of by the numbers, and give you all a general sort of overview of the training landscape for internship. And then Dr. Batista is going to take over and discuss some practical aspects of the application cycle and process, and then Dr. Nichols will bring us home and discuss other considerations involving the application and placement process. Let's see. Moving. There we go. Okay, so these are brand new, fresh numbers straight from APPIC, which is the as you'll learn very well, APPIC is kind of the organization that handles and coordinates the application process and in the interviewing and matching process. So these stats are about a week and a half old from APPIC. And what I want you to pay attention to are the number of applicants registered to in the match, 4,139, versus applicants who actually matched, 3,684. So 92% of applicants nationally matched for internship in both phase 1 and phase 2. And that's a remarkably lower than it has been in the last several years. It's important for you to appreciate that mostly because of COVID, there's been an increased discrepancy with the number of applicants registering for internship versus the number of internship spots available. And a lot of that, just simply has to do with the viability of training sites during COVID and funding considerations attached to that. And so we're, cautiously optimistic that, by, over the course of the year, some sites that had sidelined themselves this past cycle will get back in the game, so to speak, and start accepting applicants. But we obviously just don't know. So we're kind of assuming something more similar than different in terms of the numbers. And so this is all to say that, the training landscape last year and probably next year is going to be a click more competitive than it has been, maybe the several years prior to COVID. The good news is, we are, as a program, by the numbers, we're putting out some competitive applicants. So we're kind of rising to the challenge, and there's much to be encouraged by that, and we'll get into those numbers in a second. Whoops. Okay, so this is the now you can see combined phase 1 and phase 2. There's 2 main phases of the match, and so the important thing to know right now is that after the second phase of the match, 86.7% of applicants from clinical PsyD programs like ours match to an internship site. These are overall numbers, 86.7%. And then an equally important number is the APA accredited match rate. Nationally, those from clinical PsyD programs like Adler's, 92.6% of the students matched to APA accredited internships. So we have, on the one hand, nationally, 86.7% matching, and that overall, and 92.6% matching to APA accredited programs. The overall number the year prior, I think, was closer to like 96%. Like, it's almost like a 10% difference. I'm going to have to probably double check that, but it was, the overall placement number was significantly impacted this year by the imbalance. Here is how the cohort in front of you did. We and they, and as a program, as an institution, we are just very excited for this cohort. 95% matched overall. And that includes phase 1 and phase 2, and then what's called the post-match vacancy, which is kind of like clearinghouse in a way. So 95% is obviously, it's about, was 8.3% higher than the national average, which we're very, very proud of, which it's really a testament to how well prepared the students are in terms of their application materials, how well they were for interviews, how many interviews they received. And, to beat the national average in such a competitive training landscape really encourages us for kind of what to expect with your cohort too. And then 93% of those matched APA accredited internships. And we included in that programs that have already submitted a self-study and received an invitation or received a notification that they're going to get a site visit. In our experience, and just speaking to training directors all over the country, at that stage in the accreditation process, it's extremely unlikely that it won't end up with a favorable outcome. So we're pretty confident that that 93% number is going to remain static, maybe even increase. The last 3 years, in fact, our APA accredited match number has been 93%, which has been so for the last 3 years we've kind of have met and then maintained a record for our program. In phase 1 and phase 2, it's important for you all to realize and appreciate that Adler students, like students in most most programs, frankly, are only approved to apply to APA accredited internships. It's only the exceptional student who can apply to a non-APA accredited internship. So where's everyone going? So here is kind of a general breakdown of where your classmates are going. This consortium piece of the pie, is kind of nebulous, but a lot of that is community mental health and probably some other things, but a lot of it's community mental health. So as you can see, the straightforward community mental health centers represent about a quarter of where all Adler students end up obtaining internships, and which makes good sense. I mean, that's a lot of where the training and the emphasis and the in the program and the curriculum and in terms of what our training partners look like, a lot of it's at the community level. And so that's reflected on our outcome data for internship. We see another big chunk going to university college counseling centers. Also not terribly surprising, that's consistent with what we've seen, throughout the years. Adler students are fairly competitive for community mental health clinics, university college counseling centers, and VA medical centers. I think this year it's a little lower than it usually is, but only a little bit. And then obviously there's other settings too: hospitals, medical schools, practices, and military sites. And I think Dr. Nichols is gonna, or is maybe, I don't know, I should probably know this, but either Dr. Nichols or Dr. Batista is going to get into a little more granular in terms of how many of those students got their first pick in terms of the sites that they applied to and things like that. But I am going to hand over the proverbial mic to Dr. Batista now, and he will take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kantz. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what makes an applicant competitive for internship, and then I'll talk a little bit more after this about what makes an applicant less competitive for internship. So a few researchers years ago did some assessing of internship sites and training directors to get a sense of what they're looking for in applicants, what qualities are the most important to them when they're selecting an intern, when they're ranking their selection of interns that they want at their internship. And here's a list of a few of the things that came up. One of the most important is the fit between the student's goals and the training site's opportunities. So if a student says things like they have goals of wanting to work with veterans, being in a medical center, learning how to implement different types of evidence-based treatments with veterans, something like that, that would be a great fit for, say, like a VA, some other type of military site. It wouldn't be a great fit for, say, like a site that works with children, or a site that's like a therapeutic day school or university counseling center or something like that. So they're really looking for that kind of goodness of fit. That's one of the most important things. They also tend to put a lot of weight on the interview, how the applicant carried themselves, their professional demeanor, how well they answered questions that came up during the interview, how well they interacted with other people who were on the interview with them. They also looked a lot at supervised clinical experience. Hours within those experiences tend to carry a lot of weight, especially in the past. More so recently, there's been a little bit less focus on that, but still certainly important to consider. But they're really looking for a match between the types of clinical experiences that the applicant has had and how well those experiences have prepared them for the type of setting, the types of clinical services, the types of clients that they'll be seeing at the internship should they go there. And lastly, looking at completion of doctoral work, although more recently in the last few years, I would say that I think all students have to have their work completed, their doctoral work, coursework completed before they begin internship anyway. Next slide, please. Okay, other criteria we were looking at are criteria most strongly considered when excluding an applicant from further consideration. The first one there, again, is the interview. This time, they're talking about students who either performed really poorly, couldn't answer questions during the interview very well, maybe acted in a way that was concerning to some of the interviewers, anything like that. Basically, the interview didn't go well. Often when sites are considering who they want to extend an interview to, those that they're making the offers to, they may not quite be all on the same playing field necessarily, but they're all considered applicants that would, at least on paper, appear to be a good fit with the training site through personality, through experiences, things like that. But if they then go on the interview and the interview's not going so well, that could be a great deterrent and often result in the applicant being excluded from further consideration. Again, they also look at the fit between the goals and the training site opportunities. If there's not a good match there between the goals and the training site's opportunities, the site is not likely to consider the applicant further. Professional demeanor, letters of recommendation. Almost all letters of recommendation are good. Some are exceptional, the rest are pretty much good. A mediocre letter, a bad letter, those are big red flags from your letter writers that this applicant is probably not the best person for your program, not the best fit. Maybe there's some other kinds of concerns there. So a mediocre or worse letter of recommendation is certainly going to be grounds for being excluded from further consideration. And the last one is a number of supervised practicum hours. A number of sites have minimum requirements for hours, and if an applicant doesn't meet that requirement, typically that application would immediately be rejected. Again, there seems to be a bit less focus on that in recent years, but certainly still something important to a lot of sites. Next slide, please. Okay, next I'm going to talk a little bit about the role of APA accreditation. So as I'm sure you know, the APA, the American Psychological Association, accredits both programs and internships. In phase 1 and 2, students must apply to APA accredited sites only, or sites that have at a minimum submitted a self-study to the APA. So we've been doing this for the last couple of years. A lot of programs have this requirement. The reason for this is the field is changing. There's really been a lot of focus in more recent years on jobs requiring this of applicants to be considered. Some sites down the road may be considering whether or not an applicant for licensure has an accredited program and an accredited internship to be considered for licensure. No state requires this yet in terms of having the APA accredited internship, but that certainly could be something that we would see down the road. And it's really kind of the general direction that the field, again, is moving in. Even when I graduated, I think it was about 12 years ago now or something like that, a number of the jobs that I saw posted beyond VAs and other government jobs, which tended to be in the past the jobs that required APA accreditation, a lot of other types of settings, a lot of other types of jobs, even then, were requiring this of applicants. And really any job out there can say, make the decision that in order to be considered, an applicant must have an APA internship. So it's really in your best interest to do that anyway, which is one of the reasons we've made this decision. Next slide, please. Okay, competitiveness of matching by US geography. So in 2009, a couple of researchers, they took a look at the match rates in different cities to get a sense of how competitive different urban areas are in comparison to each other. They took the total number of positions offered by a site, divided up by the total number of applicants, and they got what's called the match rate. And they did this for 13 metropolitan areas, Chicago being one of them. You can see the rest on the list here: New York, LA, other cities that you probably consider major metropolitan areas were all considered. Next slide, please. And what they found at that time is that Chicago was the most competitive city for internship. The match rate was found to only be 3.97%. There were at that time over 9,000 applicants for only 365 positions. Really, in a lot of ways, a lot of the cities that were looked at, they all had pretty low match rates, but Chicago at that time ended up being the most competitive. So something to keep in mind with this is it really means that although Chicago is a great city and you may love being here, and maybe some of you are from here and we're hoping to stay, ideally, if you can select sites that are not just in Chicago, not just in major urban areas, but throughout different regions of the country, and maybe in some less populated areas, or ones that are in the city that maybe are just a bit less applied to, the more you can do that, the more likely you'll match and the more likely you'll have a successful internship match day. Next slide, please. So we decided to look at some more recent data. A couple of years ago, we had, I think it was our work studies, go through our data, or through the data, I should say, for 2013, 2014, and 2015. They did the same thing. They calculated the math, they did the ratio, the match ratio for a few different urban areas, the same 13 actually. At that time, they found the match rate in Chicago was about 4%, and it came in, I think it was fourth. The ones that were more competitive were found to be Boston, New York, I'm sorry, Los Angeles was the most, followed by Boston and New York. Then Chicago came in fourth. We don't have more recent data, but it's likely that it's not too different nowadays. Even if you look at these top four in terms of competitiveness, the difference in the percentages is very similar. We're talking a difference of degrees here. So really the major metropolitan urban areas, they just tend to be the more competitive types of locations to apply to for internship. And we really recommend being as broad and not as focused on being in major metropolitan area as possible when you apply for internship to increase the chances of you matching. Okay, so next slide. What predicts the best chance of matching? There's strong evidence for the single best predictor of matching is the number of interviews offered. So the more interviews you get, the more likely you're going to match. Each of those interviews is basically a chance to match at a site. You can look at it that way. The better a fit you are for the sites you apply to, the better you can demonstrate this in your application materials, the more likely you're going to get an interview. And again, the more interviews you have, the better. For 2021, nationally, applicants in phase one submitted an average of almost 15 applications and received an average of 8.5 interviews. So more than half of the sites they applied to offered an interview. We have found that a low number of attained interviews, 6 or fewer, is more likely going to result in an applicant remaining unmatched. And as we talked about a little bit earlier, as Dr. Kantz mentioned, with the role of the imbalance that's been growing recently, we're not sure how it's going to look next year. Our hope is that, as in more recent years, that imbalance will not be there, but it's certainly possible that it will be. So it's just something else to consider as you're creating your applications and deciding where to apply to. Okay, for the 2021 national ranking, the average number of rankings submitted by applicants who matched was 8.6 sites. Historically, the average number of rankings submitted by applicants who did not match was 3.5 sites. So again, the fewer the number of interviews, the fewer the number of sites to rank, and the decreased chance, the less likely that an applicant is going to match. Something to be aware of, nearly half of students, 47%, got their top choice. So when you go on an interview, once you've done that, assuming that a site doesn't contact you later to say you're no longer being considered, that would be a site that you could rank. You're going to make a rank list of all the sites you interviewed at, and you're going to put that in the order of the sites in terms of which one you most want, followed by the one you want second most and third most. Almost half of students got their top choice, which is great. 22% got their second choice, 13% got their third choice, and it kind of goes down the line from there. So a lot of students, and the match does tend to more so kind of favor the student ranking, got their first choice site, which is good news for applicants. Okay, with all that said, I'm going to now hand over the mic to Dr. Nichols, who's going to talk a bit about how we work with you to guide you through and prepare you for this process.
Thank you, Dr. Batista. I'm going to spend some time talking about what we will be doing with each of you to prepare you and mentor you through the internship application and interview process. It's much longer than what you're accustomed to for practicum applications, but you will have a lot of support along the way. So this is just a brief overview of the internship application process timeline. So starting in summer 1, you're already going to be having your first meeting with your assigned small groups. So what are small groups? All students that intend to apply to internship, who submit those intent to apply forms, what will happen is each of you will be assigned to one of us, and we'll be your point person through the entirety of the process. And we hold a series of small group meetings that focus on different parts of the application, site selection, and interviewing skills. So that first meeting already happens in May. As Dr. Kantz mentioned earlier, we did move this process up a couple weeks, and that was based on student feedback from prior cohorts that actually said, had we started maybe even a month sooner, it would have been even more helpful. So we've gone ahead and done that, and it does seem to be helpful just to keep everything more manageable for everybody, because there's a lot of things to keep track of. So you will have then, after the summer 1 term ends, during summer 2, you will have another small group meeting, and then early in the fall, you will have your 3rd small group meeting, and that final one will focus more on interviewing skills. What's going to be happening during the summer and early fall is you're going to be working on all of the various components to your application, which include writing and revising your essays. So what you'll come to see as you start to look through what the application entails is that there are 4 essays that all applicants have to write. And it may seem when you first read the prompts like, oh, these are 4 essays. These are things I've been spending a lot of time thinking about throughout graduate school. No problem. But you'll be surprised actually how much work will go into writing and revising these 4 essays. They have 500-word limits, and it's really important that you're able to convey your identity thus far as a future psychologist, and also your knowledge base and so forth in these 4 essays. So we'll give you lots of support around writing and revising those. You'll also be working on revising your CV. You'll be working on sample cover letters to get feedback on, which are a little more in detail than what you're accustomed to doing for practicum. And then you'll be working on the APPIC, which is a very detailed application that students nationally have to complete for the internship process. And this is where you're going to be inputting all of your hours, experiences, and so forth. So that is also a timely process. There are 2 things that will also be taking place summer and early fall. One is going to be, you're going to be defending your dissertation proposal. That is a requirement to be able to go on internship. And then if you haven't done so, you'll also be needing to pass your intervention CQE, since that would be the final qualifying exam milestone that you would have to complete before being eligible to apply. In late October and early November is when you're going to begin to submit applications. There are a couple applications that are due late October, but most are due at the November 1st and forward from there. So you'll start submitting those applications. That's all done electronically through a portal. So there's no mailing of any materials through the postal mail. Then in December and January, you'll be completing your interviews. And then in February is when you'll be ranking and preparing for the match for phase 1. If you do not match in phase 1, then during March, you will reapply to sites that are available in phase 2. You'll do interviews again, you'll rank those sites, and then there'll be a match day for phase 2. And then in late summer is when you would begin your internship. So you could see that it is a very lengthy process from start to finish. But again, you'll have support along the way from us. The 2 milestones that I mentioned, defending your dissertation proposal and your intervention CQE, both of those milestones must be completed by no later than October 15th, 2021. There is a part on your application on the APPIC that we have to endorse that you have defended your dissertation proposal and have successfully passed all of your competency exams. So those are requirements to be able to move forward with internship. So please be aware of these dates. Make sure that you are talking with your dissertation chair and moving forward in defending that dissertation proposal. Next slide, please. The other thing you're going to be doing, as Dr. Kantz mentioned at the start of the presentation, is complete your intent to apply for internship form. You can fill this out by clicking this link. It's due by April 19th by 5 p.m., but the sooner you do it, the better. It's a short form. Again, it's just a way for us to know who is intending to apply for internship and who may be making the determination to delay applying for another year. You can also already start becoming acquainted with the different types of internships available. The internship directory through APPIC, which you can access at appic.org, is available 24/7, 365. Obviously, it's not updated yet for next year, but you could already start looking at what kind of internship sites may be available to you. And in your small groups, we'll go through in more detail how to navigate the directory as you're beginning to determine what kind of sites you may apply to. So in preparation for your small group, so what's going to happen is once those forms are submitted and then you're assigned to your small group point person then is going to email you and say, hey, you're in my group, and these are the dates to move forward with our different small group meetings and so forth. But the things that you're going to be emailing your point person, so these are some of the documents you can start working on as you wait to hear who that your point person may be. One is update your CV. So make sure that it looks clean, it includes all the most up-to-date information, everything is accurate, includes your advanced practicum, which we know you don't necessarily yet know all the things you'll be doing, but at least that you have it in there as a placeholder to start updating as that experience unfolds. Remember, there are CV resources available on the training page on Adler Connect. You're also going to be sending your point person your most recent unofficial transcript where you can get that through self-service. Your up-to-date advisement sheet. This is so that we also have an idea of how many classes you have left, what your plan is for next year, and so forth. It should also include, make sure, because this is going to be going in at the beginning of summer one, up to date this at the end of the spring semester, so you kind of know what courses are completed and the outcome of all of those. And then you'll also, your dissertation proposal defense form, once it is completed and signed by your committee, you're going to email a copy of that to your point person as well, so we can have official documentation and verification that you in fact have completed your dissertation proposal defense successfully. There are a couple of resources that are going to be important for you to access. One is APPIC puts out an internship prep workbook, Internships in Psychology. That is the reference. Right now, I believe it's on the 4th edition. You may even be able to reach out to people in the cohort above you that you may know that may have this workbook, that, if you could borrow it. But it is really helpful. It gives lots of helpful resources on navigating the APPIC, your essays, and so forth. We also have an internship handbook. We are in the process of updating it right now, so it will be available sometime in May, and we'll let you know that. But you could read through the current internship handbook just to get a general sense of the process, because those things are not going to be, the main nuts and bolts aren't going to be the things that are going to be changing. And then any additional upcoming information we will post in the internship announcement section on Connect. Your small group point person is going to give you a lot of resources as well. So just know and be on the lookout in terms of getting emails and so forth that is going to include all of this information. So our hope is for all of you that come March of next year that you will all be secured at an internship that you're excited about, that you're going to be able to really see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of your long graduate school training. And we're really looking forward to working with all of you as the cycle begins shortly. So next steps are going to be, again, you'll be hearing from us in the coming weeks about who your point person is. Make sure you get your intent to apply form completed. If you have any questions about whether or not applying for internship this cycle is going to be a good fit for you, please reach out to one of us as soon as possible so we could have that conversation with you. Yeah, but that's all I've got.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Nichols. Thank you, Dr. Batista. Thank you all of you students who have sat through all 41 minutes of this presentation. Just to reiterate, please do prioritize the intent to apply form. Yeah, we are looking forward to a productive year of internship prep. So we'll see you all in the small groups, and hope everyone has a successful remainder of the semester.